This video is part 2 of basic AutoCAD architecture commands. On my desktop, I'm going to go ahead and launch my program, AutoCAD Architecture 2015. If we take a look, we also have that TD template that we previously saved, and we also have our AutoCAD folder that we are going to save all of our drawings in. And all those are on my desktop, so they're easy to find. Now again, if you recall from the previous video, every time you start a new drawing, you want to come up here to the application menu, and we want to go down to new. And we need to navigate to the TD template, which is located on the desktop, and find our TD template and open that, and that's going to load some of those presets in the program that is really going to help our drawing go a little bit faster to get started. In the previous video, we talked about object snap, which is located here at the bottom. And if you recall, object snap allows us to kind of magnetically connect different points together. We don't actually even have to be touching the points, and as long as we're in the general vicinity and we see the little icon come up, then it'll snap to that point. Now we're going to talk about object snap tracking, and what this is going to do is it's going to help us connect up lines that are a far distance away from specific points. And what we're going to do to demonstrate this is I first want you to have object snap tracking turned off. So it should be white. Shouldn't be blue, should be white is if it's turned off. We're going to come up here to the line menu, and I want you to draw a box. Now I want a square box, and that means I need to draw perfectly straight lines. Well, right now it's not allowing me to snap to straight up and down or straight left and right. And if you recall from the previous video, we talked about polar and ortho mode. Because I am drawing a box that is perfectly up and down, left and right, I can turn on ortho mode, and that will constrain my line to up and down, left and right. So as I continue drawing this box, let's go down a little ways, and I'm going to go over to the right and back up to where I think it looks like it's about lined up. And keep in mind, object snap tracking is turned off, object snap is turned on, and also we have ortho turned on, which is ortho was that straight up and down, left and right. Now if I connect to my first point, it looks pretty straight, and I'm going to hit escape to cancel out of this so I stop making more lines. And looks like we got a pretty straight square here. To check and see if this is a perfect box, I'm going to come up here to the distance tool, which allows me to measure a distance. So I'm going to select that distance. I'm going to select my first point and bring it down to my second point, and each time I'm just left clicking one time. And this says that the distance is 9 5/8 inches. So I'm going to come back up here to distance, and I'm going to measure the other side of it. And that says that this is 9 9/16. So that's pretty obvious that this is not a perfect square or a perfect rectangle. These corners are not perfectly 90 degrees up at the top. We know they're 90 degrees down here at the bottom because we had ortho turned on, but up here at the top, this is actually a diagonal line that we just drew. I'm going to use my mouse, and I'm going to push and hold in the wheel, which allows me to pan the drawing, and I'm going to move that crooked rectangle over to the left. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch from ortho mode to polar mode. And if you recall, polar mode will allow you to draw lines at angles and It'll snap to up and down, left and right, like ortho mode will. But I'm going to use this setting. I also have object tracking turned on, and I have object snap turned on. So I'm going to create my box. So I'm coming down a little ways. There's my first point, actually my second point. I'm going to come over, select my next point, and before I select my top right hand corner point, I'm going to come up here to my first point, and I'm going to touch that point with the cursor, but I'm not going to click. I'm going to hold it there just for a second, and I'm going to pull it straight to the right. And when you do this, you can see this dotted line going across the entire drawing. This is the object snap tracking. It's tracking that first point. So as I pull this over and I just follow that line, all of a sudden as we get close it snaps to perfectly up and down, lined up with left and right, that very first point. So I'm going to select this point and the last point, and then hit escape to cancel out of that. So I'm going to show you that one more time. So we're going to have polar turned on, we have object snap tracking turned on, and we have object snap turned on. I'm going to come up to my line command, select my first point, second point, third point. I'm going to come up here and touch my first point, pull it straight across until it snaps straight up and down, and then back to my first point, and escape to exit out of that command. Now if we measure this, this side is 10 7/16, and our other side 10 7/16, perfectly 90-degree corners. The next thing we're going to talk about is the modify erase command. Sometimes in your drawings you have lines that you want to get rid of. To do that, we're going to come up here to the modify area, which is located still within the home tab up here. In this modify area, we have a little, looks like a pencil with an eraser trying to erase something. If I move my mouse pointer over that, we can see a little tool tip pops up that says that that is the erase tool. I'm going to select that erase command by left clicking one time, and if I read the command line down in the bottom left hand corner, it says erase select objects, meaning I selected the erase command and it wants me to select the objects. So I'm going to select this bottom one, and let's select the top one, and maybe let's go ahead and select the left one as well. Now it's going to keep telling me to select objects over and over, and I can just keep on selecting as many as I want. When I'm done selecting all my objects, I can press enter on the keyboard and the objects go away, or they're erased. Now I'm going to come up here and do that again. The modify area, I'm going to select erase. On this particular box, I'm going to select a couple lines. My command line down at the bottom is still saying to select objects. This time I'm going to right click and they go away. So that's another way you can execute that command. And again, with AutoCAD, there's about 10 different ways to do everything. And you just pick which one you can remember and which one works the best for you. Now another way to erase a line, that is my preferred method, is you just left click once on whatever line or object you want to get rid of, and you push the delete key on your keyboard and it goes away. I find that method to be just a little bit quicker than actually clicking the erase button up top. It's really up to you what you choose to do. So what I want you to do now, we're going to take a look at the modify extend command. I want you to take a line, and we're going to draw a little section of line between two vertical lines. My horizontal line here has a gap at either end, and I'm going to use a command to extend that line to my vertical line, and then it'll stop there. To do this, we want to again find the modify area, and we need to look for extend. Now if you're not quite sure, you can go through, okay, this one is move, this one is rotate, explode, bring to front. If we can't find it, we got to keep looking. Next to the modify word, there's a little down arrow. And if we left click once on that down arrow, it gives us even more options to modify or manipulate various objects within AutoCAD. So now we need to go through and take a look: mirror, scale, stretch, lengthen. Now you would think lengthen might be one that would allow us to lengthen this line to the other line. However, there is a better method, and that method is to use the extend command, which is what we're looking for. So as I go through here, I'm still not seeing it, but what I do see is next to several of these icons we have a little down arrow, and if we click those we have even more options. So let's jump back up here to the top portion, and if we find this particular icon here, it is defaulted to AEC trim, but when we click the little down arrow, it gives us a couple other commands: trim, AEC, extend, and extend. Now the extend command, that is the one that we want to use. So I'm going to go ahead and left click once and take a look at my command line. Now my command line says extend because that's what I clicked on. It wants me to select the objects or select all. Now because I want to keep this lesson relatively simple, my recommendation is to press enter on your keyboard, which selects everything on the screen, and then all you need to do is click on the line that you want to extend. So I can click on this line and it shows me where it's going to extend to. Left click one time and it extends. I can come over to the other side, left click one time and it extends. Now with this feature, there are methods of controlling the amount it extends, but again, for the purpose of this basic course, the only thing you need to know is that when you come up here to extend and you take a look in the command line and it wants you to select objects, you can just push enter on your keyboard to select everything, and then you just click on what you want to extend. That's the easiest, fastest way to extend lines. Now if we take a look in that same menu up in the modify area, we have a trim command. The trim command you're probably going to use quite a bit more than the extend command. So for this particular one, I'm going to left click on trim, take a look down in the bottom left where our command line is. It says trim, meaning that we selected trim, and it wants us to select the objects or select all. This particular command is the same as extend, where if you push enter on your keyboard, then all you need to do is just click on what you don't want. So if I don't want this bottom part, I click on it and it goes away. If I don't want this top part up here, just click on it and it goes away. And you can keep clicking on items until they go away and you don't need to trim anymore. Now you will run into cases where when you try to trim this line, it's not going to let you trim it. And it even shows a little like no smoking sign there that it doesn't let you trim it. What that means is that that line, there's nothing to trim. You can just select that line and delete it because there's nothing to trim it to. There's no intersecting lines that it'll trim it back to. So you can just click on it and delete it. I'm going to go ahead and delete these other two lines. I'm going to select both of them by left clicking on them one time and pressing the delete on my keyboard to delete those. And I'm going to come up here to my line command and I'm going to create a vertical line. And what we are going to do now is we are going to offset this line a specified distance away. So in this case we want to offset it 1 inch. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up and find the modify area again, and we're going to locate the offset command. I'm going to left click once on the offset command. I'm going to look at my command line and it says offset, meaning I selected the offset command. It says to specify an offset distance. So this is saying how far away do you want to create a new line? Well, I know that I want to create this 1 inch away. So I'm just going to type in 1 on my keyboard and it automatically puts it down there. You don't have to click down there. When you type, it automatically puts it down there. So I typed in 1 and I need to tell it that I'm done inputting my distance. So I'm going to press enter on the keyboard. And now my command line says select object to offset. So I'm going to come up here to my line and I'm going to select my line by left clicking once on it. And then it says in the command line specify point on side to offset. And all that means is which side of that original line do you want to offset your new line. Well, let's go ahead and go to the right. So I'm just going to click anywhere on the right side of that line. Left click one time and my lines are exactly 1 inch apart. And I'm going to push escape a couple times to back out of that command. I'm going to come up here to my distance tool and I'm going to measure the distance. And as we can see, it is 1 inch apart. Now if I want to offset multiple lines, I'm going to come up here to my offset button. I'm going to specify my distance, so I'm going to type in 1 inch or just 1 and push enter. And I'm going to select my line and click to the right side of my line. If I click to the left side of my line, it's offsetting a line directly on top of the previous line. But I'm going to go to the right side, and let's say I want to keep offsetting lines. While this command is still active, I can click on the previous line and click to the right. Click on the line, click to the right. And I can just keep offsetting the same line as many times as I want. And when I'm done, I can hit escape and exit out of that command. Alright, so there's two last key pieces of information that I want to talk about before we're ready to do our first drawing. The first one is how to draw a line to a specified distance. To do that, we're going to select the line command. I'm going to select a point on my screen in my drawing area. I'm going to pull the line in the direction that I want to go, and then I'm going to type it in. So let's say I want to go 10 inches. I'm going to type in 10 and press enter on my keyboard. And that drew that line to exactly 10 inches. And now, I can keep drawing more lines. I'm going to hit escape here. But this line right here is exactly 10 inches. Distance tool, measure that, exactly 10 inches. Now what a lot of people will do when they first start is they'll go to the line command and they'll select a mark and they will attempt to use the measurements that pop up as you're pulling the line. I don't ever recommend using those because those are kind of rough estimates of what the line is going to be. Sometimes you could be a 64th of an inch off, but AutoCAD is rounding to the nearest 1/8 or 16th. So it's always best practices to type in a exact distance. So if I want to go 12 inches, you type in 12 inches. Now another thing that's a little challenging is when you have fractions. So if I am pulling my line and I want to make a measurement that's 1.5 inches, if I'm pretty decent at math, I could just type in 1.5, meaning 1.5 inches, and hit enter, and there my line's 1.5 inches. But if I'm not too good at math and I want to leave it in fractions, I can type 1-1/2, 1-1/2, and that will make my line 1.5 inches when I hit enter. And I can go, let's go 1.5 this time, and as we go up, let's go 1-1/2, enter. Hit escape, and we have a perfect square that is 1.5 by 1.5 inches. Now the other thing is, if you add in feet plus inches plus a fraction of an inch, the way you do that, we're going to start a line. I'm going to pull it in the direction that I want to go. If I want to do 2 feet, I'm going to type in 2 in the foot mark. Then I'm going to type in my inch measurement. So let's say 2 foot 4 inches, but I don't have to put the inch mark. So I can type 2 foot mark 4, then I could type in -1/8. So it'd be 2 feet 4 1/8 inches, and I could hit enter, and that line is 2 feet 4 1/8, and let's go ahead and measure that, 2 feet 4 1/8. And once you get familiar with that, it goes a little bit faster for inputting those measurements. Or if you're really good at math, you can just convert everything to decimal inches. The very last thing that I want to talk about is grip points on the lines. If I select any of these lines, you'll see 3 blue boxes throughout that line. Those are the grip points on the lines. If I have a line and I want to make it a little bit longer, maybe I measured wrong or I'm trying to manually extend it or something, you can left click once on that grip point and it allows you to pull the line to a different size. You could even go up at an angle. The other grip point, it'll pull it the other direction. Now if you click on the middle grip point, that will actually move your line around. And I don't typically use that middle grip point, but the end ones I do find myself using every once in a while. However, I will mention that a lot of times using the extend command that we talked about works way better than using the grip points, because sometimes those grip points want to snap to other lines and you might not want them to. And that pretty much wraps up everything for part 2 of basic AutoCAD architecture commands. One thing that I do want to mention is your homework. I want you to find the diameter of the earth in feet. The diameter of the earth in feet. That's your homework.